I had started working on a story and was holding back waiting for Mark Tinsley's response. But there was a new development, so I'm going ahead with it today. On January 16th of this year, Deborah Barbier and Mark Moore filed a petition for a writ of prohibition in the South Carolina Supreme Court, followed up with the motion to stay pending ruling on petition. This involved the conspiracy case related to the boat crash. It involves Mallory's mom and Gregory Parker, the owner of the convenience store who sold Paul the liquor, which ultimately played a part in the boat crash. I did a podcast on this some time back. The reason for these filings concerned the judge that had been appointed to preside over the case, Judge Bentley Price. Judge Price was disqualified for a new term back on Tuesday, November 28, 2023, by the South Carolina Bar's Judicial Qualifications Committee on the basis of reputation. Judge Price had scheduled a hearing to rule on several motions on the case, but that was met by this writ of prohibition that has led to Judge Price stepping down. Just another story of judicial misconduct messing up the search for justice in this messy Murdaugh case. Let's get started. This is Legal Updates with Cassidy. Mallory Beach still awaiting justice for leaked pictures of her deceased body as Judge Bentley Price steps down from the case. Welcome. Judge Bentley Price, whom you might remember as the judge who presided over the Satterfield case against Alex Murdaugh, was in fact determined to be unqualified to continue his position as elected to the 9th Judicial Circuit, which includes Charleston and Berkeley counties. As mentioned earlier, he was deemed unqualified on the grounds of his reputation. So, what sullied his reputation? In an article on November 30th, 2023, Javen Harris of the state newspaper writes, South Carolina judge accused of being too lenient on violent criminals has been fired from the bench. Among other accusations made against him, he was seen to be too lenient. For example, Justin Moultrie was already facing a murder charge for the murder of Tony Little. He also faced other charges such as manufacturing and distributing cocaine, when Price inexplicably granted him bond. Not long after, Moultrie shot into a vehicle, hitting the foot of an 8-year-old boy. Then we have the story of Dartez Ferguson Jr., who was out on bond for robbery and other charges. He had violated the terms of that bond multiple times, but was still left free by Price only to commit murder at a grocery store.
Murder while he was out on bond for a slew of other charges will remain out of jail, at least for now. Today, Judge Bentley Price ruled Dartez Ferguson must stay on strict house arrest for the next 10 days and must not leave his house for any reason. Price gave this deadline for prosecutors and the defense to get more concrete information and a list of locations where Ferguson has been while out on bond. Now, for background, Ferguson is charged with murder in connection to a shooting at the A1 grocery store in North Charleston back in November of 2021. This all comes after the prosecution filed 4 months ago to have Ferguson's bond revoked for violating the terms of his bond and house arrest and going to unauthorized places like bars. The defense, meanwhile, argues the bond company has never complained about Ferguson and says he's always in touch about his location. Here's the victim's mother speaking in the bond hearing today.
When I got up this morning, I said, is he going to be out again? Are they going to fail me again? Because it just doesn't seem fair that he's out living his life and my son is not even here to speak for himself.
Well, initially, Judge Price revoked Ferguson's bond entirely for the next 2 weeks until the defense protested, at which point Judge Price changed his ruling. Ferguson was out on bond for robbery and other drug-related charges when he was arrested for that 2021 murder.
These are only two of many such cases, but the story is deeper than that. What do people claim is the reason for this leniency? Digging deeper into this article in the state newspaper, we see this name, State Representative Leon Stanakis. What is the claim? The article highlights that many people are calling for reform in the way these lawyer legislators are selected because of claims that some have been improperly leveraged into their positions. Why? To secure favorable rulings for the clients of the lawyers who helped them get elected. Now, I've long felt that this whole lawyer-legislator situation is completely out of hand. It seems in some cases there's a token lawyer-legislator put on cases simply so they can stall them by claiming immunity during sessions. Think Todd Rutherford in Russell Lefit's case.
Murdaugh co-conspirator Russell Lefit was also in court today for a status hearing. He's awaiting trial on 21 state charges for his role in the fraud conspiracy with Murdaugh. Lefit's attorneys argued they won't be ready for trial by the end of this year. State prosecutors said they're ready to proceed now and pointed out if the case doesn't go to trial by December, it may not happen until a year from now. One of Lefit's attorneys is State Representative Todd Rutherford, who would be protected from court appearances January through June while doing his job in the legislature. Another hearing is set for September 14th for lawyers to try to get a firmer schedule put together. Lefit has already been sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for his crimes, but is waiting to find out if he can stay free on bond until his federal appeal is decided.
And now this accusation that they also rule in favor of those who helped them get to the bench. We see another familiar name at the bottom, Peter McCoy. His name might be familiar to you as one of the receivers hired to get to the bottom of Alex Murdaugh's assets. First Circuit Solicitor David Pascoe claims that McCoy helped Price to the bench. The article continues saying that it was a move to replace Judge Christy Harrington because she had ruled against him in a criminal case that also involved Bentley Price. It goes on to say that Mr. McCoy had even spoken at length for anyone who was at Bentley Price's investiture about how he had worked hard to get Bentley Price elected to the bench. Using this Ferguson case as an example of his claims, he attributes Price's leniency toward him to be because of his friendship with Stanakis and the help supplied to him to get appointed, saying that Price sided with Stanakis and permitted Ferguson to remain on the streets. Stanakis denies these claims. But Pascoe goes on to say that I would invite all of you to go to the Ninth Circuit Solicitor's Office website for the public to see what the bar, the bailiffs, and everyone in the courtroom see every day, which is the preferential treatment that Price gives to Representative Stanakis. I have not had time to research these allegations on the website, but apparently there was enough of a basis for Judge Price to be disqualified, and his term will end in June of this year. This writ is based in part upon the fact that the case was considered complex, and it was requested by plaintiffs to keep the case to one judge because of the complexity. With Price leaving the bench in June, that will not be possible, and at this stage, it's much better to change judges now, as the case has not gone very far at this point. These are not the only accusations, however, so let's dive into this document. To start with, before you say, I thought the boat crash was already settled, or before anyone puts in an opinion in comments about the people involved in the boat crash. This is not about the boat crash. This is about the secondary case that came up out of the boat crash case. If you haven't watched it, please click the link in comments to get up to speed on this because I won't spend a lot of time reviewing it, other than to say this case is known as the conspiracy case. It's also referred to as an outrage case. Parker is accused of leaking privileged and sensitive information, including death scene photos of Mallory Beach, also of hiring PIs and paying bloggers to post defamatory and protected information in a smear campaign to try to assist him in his fight against charges brought about by Mallory's mom, Renee. A trailer for a documentary with these images was leaked publicly for a short time. Regardless of how you may personally feel about the boat crash, this is disgusting. No mother, father, sister, friend, whatever, should have had to have been exposed to these underhanded and cruel methods of attack. There's much more to that story as well, so be sure and watch. So in this motion, they're asking the court for a stay while they await the Supreme Court's ruling on their newly filed writ of prohibition, which we'll be referring to today as the petition. Judge Price had scheduled a hearing for January 24th to decide on motions that had been put before the court, some being well over a year old, and defense is not having it. They state, the petition raises serious concerns about whether Judge Price should continue to preside in this action, particularly given the fact that Judge Price previously determined this case to be complex in nature, such that it needed to be presided over by one judge from start to finish, and given the fact that his term on the bench will end on June 30th, 2024. They put forth the legal standard from Rule 62D of the South Carolina Rules of Civil Procedure, which allows for the court to stay proceedings during the pendency of an appeal. Under argument, they claim there are numerous grounds that raise reasonable questions as to Judge Price's impartiality, with respect to the question if Price is allowed to preside over this case, and then they make the dramatic statement that the Parker's defendants' only recourse is to seek a writ of prohibition from the Supreme Court and to prevent prejudice from irreparably infecting this matter. And again, this was filed by Mark Moore and yet another familiar name, Corey Fleming's attorney, Deborah Barbier. Then we have our actual writ. We have 37 pages, including the index and the table of authorities. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I do love the style of this petition. After looking at Dick's filings for the past few months, it's a sight for my sore eyes. I mean, look at this beautiful index with its obliging layout and page number guide, and then you turn the page and are met with this elegant table of authorities. I feel obligated to light candles, pour a glass of wine, and play a soft, smooth record when I see such an elegantly crafted piece of fine legal organization like this. I mean, look at the italics on this beauty. I felt guilty printing it on my Amazon Basic bulk paper instead of a fine, silky Midori from the faraway shores of Japan. And then I saw the indentation mistake, like a bright red pimple on a first date, and I remembered the actual contents, tossed the wine, blew out the candle, took the record off, and got back to work. In the introduction, we find that in spite of not one but two strongly worded letters less than a fortnight apart asking Judge Price to take a hike, he has not responded, but instead scheduled a court hearing for later that month. In response, this writ of prohibition was filed. This feels like a case of deja vu because we just saw this happen with Alex Murdaugh's case, where they demanded to the Supreme Court that Judge Newman be recused, and Judge Newman ended up recusing himself from the murder appeal, only to be asked to remain for the financial guilty plea, and Justice Toll being appointed to handle the filing for a new trial. Throughout this document, they've expressed instances where they felt Judge Price's decisions were unfair, so we'll have to see where this leaves us with this case, since Judge Price has been replaced by the Honorable G.D. Morgan, Jr., and will likely continue very shortly to not only address those motions that have been ruled on, as well as the ones that Price had scheduled to rule on January 24th. Originally, I had intended to go through all of their points of contention in this writ, but a lot of them have been rendered moot by this appointment of a new judge. So I won't go into any of that today. I will be keeping my eye on any developments on this case to see what sort of decisions this judge makes concerning their complaints here in this writ, and also the rulings on the motions that were supposed to have been decided last month. As always, I will let you know what I find. Till then, this is Cassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.